So hello, good morning everybody, and welcome back out to the Dartmoor National Park. Now it's been a few weeks since I've gone out and done any photography, and I think the reason for that really is I've just not been feeling it. I've been getting up in the morning and just haven't had the enthusiasm to get my tired bottom out of bed into the cold and the dark and get out and take any images. But today I feel a bit better and a bit different about things, so I'm going to come out here today. Hopefully we're going to have a fantastic day of photography and the weather looks absolutely amazing. And of course, on top of that, we're going to share some images with you and a few photography tips. And you know what? I'm also going to talk about how I'm going to give my creativity bit of a reboot, so that should help you as well. But my physical fitness has certainly taken a bit of a beating, and the health isn't there as it was before, so I'm going to get up to the top of this hill before we can make our first photograph. Up there, when I got to the top of the tour and I was looking across the landscape, it just didn't work out very well. It was too harsh, too bright, the light wasn't coming from the right directions, and I just couldn't really make a composition out of it. But I've come to another place. On this walk I've got a number of different locations all planned out which are going to work equally well, so I'm not worried in the least. Now, I mentioned health, and you may well ask, what on earth has health got to do with landscape photography? Well, in fact, any type of photography, to be honest, but it's got quite a lot to do with it. Apart from the obvious that you need to be physically fit enough to do the photography you want to do. I'm careful to say that because I've taken people out on workshops that have said, I'd love to go out and do a landscape photography workshop, but I can only walk for about 20 minutes. Well, that's absolutely fine. You can do that as well. It is possible. So to be fit enough to do the photography you want to do, that's all you need to worry about. But there's the other health as well, isn't there? There's the mental health. But we are out here today. No more worrying about what's been going on. I'm going to set up this photograph. I've got a great panoramic in mind, but I actually haven't got the camera out and looked at it yet, so I might be, well, I don't know. I'll share it with you in a minute. Well, after spending all the time setting up the panorama, putting the camera on, getting in the vertical format, leveling the tripod up, setting it up so that the bubble level was all straight and I'd get a nice clean horizon, I decided not to shoot the panorama. The reason was, where I was looking at it in the frame, there's quite a high contrast range running from left to right, and also sorry, excuse me, and also it just didn't work too well. There was too much in it. It was too busy. And when I looked at it, there was one part of that composition that was really quite heavy and dominant in terms of detail and interest, and it's that which I've finally put my 75 to 300 on and zoomed in to look at. So let's put that viewfinder video up for you so you can see what it is I'm looking at the same time. So if you look at the frame, you'll see that down in the bottom of the valley we've got some nice trees down there against the autumnal sort of colours of the bracken, and that is the centre of interest that really drew me in. And then in the background we've got this woodland, and then beyond that we've got some recession in the hills going into the distance, and that's how I really wanted to sort of show the image. It's the bits that really captured my imagination. Now, there is another photograph as well that I may choose to take, just nestled between two hills in the distance, and I'm going to have a look at that now. But in the meantime, just have a look at this image that I've just taken, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. Over the last few weeks, I've not really been that interested in getting up in the morning in the dark, dragging my backside up onto Dartmoor or anywhere else come to that means, and taking photographs. I found I've been making all kinds of excuses for not going out, and really it comes down to one thing. I really just didn't feel like coming out and doing any photography. My creativity was really quite low, and I was in a bit of a photographic rut, and we all get into those places sometimes and we just don't know what to do about it. And photographers, sometimes it can be even worse, because if you rely on your photography as the way of bringing a bit of balance and stability back to your life, then that's a spiral that doesn't end well. Anyway, I'm off for a bit of breakfast. I'm walking down to a waterfall, which just happens to be one of my favourite locations on Dartmoor, but I fear it might be a little bit busy when we get there, which is a shame because there's a big subject to do with landscape photography and connecting with nature and creativity that I want to talk about. So hopefully it'll be quiet enough to sit down and have a chat. I've got a horrible feeling that was the end of my hot water. The burner was burning really slowly, so I don't know how it's going to work out. Anyway, we don't want to talk about my technical problems and boiling water issues. We want to talk about photography. I started a photography project called Dartmoor 20 around 13 years ago now. And I want to tell you a little bit about it because it's really relevant to this connecting with nature and understanding a little bit more and how it helps your creativity. If any of you have been to any of my Camera Club lectures, then you may already have heard this story. But basically, what I found out when I started this lecture and spent more time in the landscape, more time enjoying what was going on and really getting into my photography, the more I realized that the connection with the landscape was an integral part of it. It wasn't enough just to come out, take nice photographs and move on. I had to have that connection with the landscape, like the places here. This is one of my favorite locations on Dartmoor, and it was only found by sort of exploring because this location isn't actually on the Ordnance Survey map. So it was really good to find it. And the more you go out in the landscape and the more you spend time in it, the more you understand it. And that really does boost your creativity. And that's why I think having a great awareness of the landscape is really important. But this familiarity with the landscape can also make it harder, because the more you visit it, the more you spend time there, sometimes it gets harder to find images. It gets harder when you return to the same places time and time again. One of the problems with photographs like this, on days like this, where we've got a lot of bright, contrasty sunlight, is actually balancing the exposure out with the shutter speed that you want to get the moving water. So I've been walking backwards and forwards to the camera bag and trying various neutral density filters as well to try and get it right. And I've gone from a 6-stop to a 3-stop to nothing and all the way back again as the lights change. It's making that much of a difference. But there again, I'm a little bit fussy when it comes to my moving water and what I actually want it to look like. So let's talk about the composition first. So with this photograph, what I've actually looked at doing is to try and make sure that we've got a nice little lead in from the foreground in front of us. There's some nice rocks leading in along a line of this cascade where the water's flowing past, and that's where I wanted some movement in that water to look really nice. And that kind of leads up at a bottom left to right sort of diagonal to a second set of rocks where the water's tumbling over, and then with the main waterfall in the background. I'm not actually bothered by the tree that sort of curls in from the right hand side. It fills a large proportion of the sky, and I quite like it dropping down in front of the waterfall. I think it adds a little bit of interest to it. So I think I've got it right. I've also put the polarizing filter on just to take a little bit of a highlight and a sheen off the surface of the water. There's one last picture I'm going to take here, and if it comes out I'll put it up as well. But for now I'm just going to show you this photograph, and I'm going to go in a bit closer for the next one. Hopefully it'll come out and I'll show you them both. Getting in close using the 70 to 300mm lens to isolate the intimate elements in the landscape changes your perspective on the world around you. Visiting these familiar locations, having a connection with the subject, will allow you to produce creative and meaningful photographs. I've just been setting up my shop Ruby came to help as well. And this is a location I've been to before, but actually these are probably the best conditions that I've photographed it under. When we started out this morning, the weather was really, really nice, but it wasn't really conducive to shooting moving water or this sort of scene. It was far too contrasting. But actually it's worked out really well for us because it's quite overcast, but still quite bright. And that overcast weather is allowing me to get some nice images of this bridge. I've set the camera up fairly low down to the water, and I've set up with a 16:9 crop. I'm going to put the video up on the screen for you, but the final crop will be done when I show you the final picture in a minute. But the reason I wanted to put this up and show you is that, one, the composition. I've tried to pin it, like I say, the 16:9. I've got the rock on the left hand side, a rock far over on the right hand side as well, and a nice sort of like diagonal between those two, which I think works quite nicely. Now I'm trying two compositions. I'm trying one with the sky in it and one with most of the sky out of it, because the sky in the background is really, really bright. And I can't decide yet whether I want to finally sort of deal with that in post-processing and do a bit of exposure blending, or whether I just want to leave it with the narrower angle of view and crop the sky out completely. You'll know before I do. And I've been using the polarizing filter to control those reflections on the surface of the water. And it's really, really important that you do that. And when I talk about controlling the reflections, it's not just about eliminating them. Something I really like to make sure in my photography is that I maintain a certain amount of realism, amount of truth to my images. And water is a reflective surface, so it's very, very important that when you use your polarizer, you don't completely destroy that reflective surface, but you merely tone it down and control it. And that's what we're doing here. Well, I've enjoyed taking this photograph, and before I show you, I just want to say that the real reboot to creativity for me today was reconnecting with the landscape. For picking up a guidebook, or in my case using a map on my phone, and just going on a hike which looked promising and give me a few different locations to go to. Some I've been to before, but just being out, putting your walking boots on and being out in nature and experiencing the landscape has been a real joy, and it really has got my creative juices flowing again. And I feel even more invigorated to go out again as soon as I can. If you want to know more about photographing water and how to get these slow shutter speed effects and how to control reflections on the surface of the water, then maybe you want to watch this video next, where I go into bulb mode photography, which is extreme slow shutter speed and controlling the reflections on the surface of the water. I'll see you in the next video. Get out and enjoy your photography.